The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly was the largest building ever made by any species in the known universe. It floated in space near the center of the galaxy, a massive structure of crystal and metal that could hold millions of beings. On this day, representatives from 37 different alien civilizations had gathered to discuss a small planet called Earth. Ambassador Al of the Dominion walked to the center of the hall. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with gray skin covered in hard scales. 4 yellow eyes sat in his flat face, and his mouth was filled with sharp teeth that clicked together when he spoke. The had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They were conquerors, they were rulers, and they had never lost a war. Fellow members of the Assembly, Al began, his voice echoing through the massive chamber, I bring news from the outer rim. A new species has discovered faster-than-light travel. They call themselves humans, and they come from a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Holographic images appeared above the center of the hall. They showed Earth from space, beautiful and fragile, covered in blue oceans and green land. Then the images changed to show human cities, human vehicles, human weapons. The aliens watched with mild curiosity. They are weak, Al continued. They have only just learned to travel between stars. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are primitive. They fight among themselves constantly. They have no shields, no plasma guns, no understanding of dimensional warfare. They are like children playing with toys. A low murmur of agreement spread through the assembly. The species of insect-like creatures clicked their approval. The beings of living crystal hummed in unison. Even the bird-like aliens who usually stayed neutral in such matters nodded their feathered heads. But there is a problem, Al said. These humans breed quickly, very quickly. Their population is already in the billions. If we leave them alone, they will spread across the galaxy like a disease. They will consume resources that belong to us. They will become a threat. He paused, letting his words sink in. I propose a solution. We vote today to subjugate Earth. We will send our fleet to their system. We will take their planet. Their people will be relocated to work camps where they can serve the assembly. Their world will be stripped of its resources, and their primitive technology will be studied and then destroyed. The assembly was silent for a long moment. Then a representative stood up. Is this necessary? Perhaps we could simply make contact with them, offer them membership in the assembly, teach them our ways. Al laughed, a harsh sound like stones grinding together. Membership. These creatures are barely intelligent. They still burn dead plants for energy. They still kill each other over imaginary lines on their maps. They are not worthy of membership. They are worthy only of service. No one else spoke up for humanity, not a single voice. Then we vote, Al announced. All in favor of subjugating Earth, raise your sign of approval. 37 lights appeared above 37 delegations. The vote was unanimous. Far away, on the small blue planet called Earth, a woman named Grace Miller sat on her porch in rural Kansas. She was 63 years old, a retired schoolteacher with gray hair and kind eyes. She watched the sunset paint the sky in beautiful colors and thought about her, who were coming to visit next week. She had no idea that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, her entire species had just been sentenced to death. Admiral received his orders 1 hour after the vote. He was the commander of the combined galactic fleet, the most powerful military force in the known universe. His fleet numbered 12,000 warships. Each ship was armed with weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. His personal vessel, the Eternal Dominion, was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to crack a planet in half. Was old for nearly 400 years. He had conquered dozens of worlds. He had wiped out species that refused to submit. He had never known defeat, and he did not expect to know it now. Set course for the Sol system, he ordered his crew. Maximum speed. His tactical officer, a young named L, pulled up all the information they had about humanity. Sir, Their largest warship is called the Endeavor. It is commanded by a human male named Daniel Carter. The ship is only 500 meters long. It is armed with nuclear weapons and simple kinetic guns. His mouth twisted into something like a smile. Nuclear weapons, how primitive. Our shields will not even notice them. Should we offer terms of surrender, sir? Perhaps they will submit peacefully. The admiral shook his head. No, let them see our fleet arrive. Let them watch 12,000 warships fill their sky. Let them understand that resistance is impossible. And then, when they are crying with fear, we will take everything they have. El nodded, but something bothered him. He had studied humans extensively. He had watched their history, their wars, their struggles. These creatures had survived ice ages that covered their planet. They had survived plagues that killed half their population. They had survived 2 world wars that destroyed their greatest cities, and every time they had come back stronger. Sir, he said carefully, the humans have a saying. They say that they are most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. Waved his hand dismissively. Sayings and words, they will not stop plasma fire. They will not stop our boarding parties. They will not stop the inevitable. He turned to face the stars ahead. In 3 days, Earth will belong to the Assembly, and humanity will learn its place in the universe. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving trails of light across the darkness of space. On Earth, it was a Tuesday. People went to work. Children went to school. Couples got married. Babies were born. An old woman in Kansas watched the sunset and smiled. They had no idea what was coming. But they would soon learn. And when they did, the galaxy would learn something too. It would learn that voting to subjugate Earth was the worst mistake any of them had ever made. It would learn that humans were not sheep to be herded. It would learn that the small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star was home to the most stubborn, creative, and dangerous species the universe had ever seen. The vote was unanimous. 37 civilizations had agreed. Soon, all 37 would regret it. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the Endeavor and stared at his display screen. He was 42 years old, with dark hair that was starting to turn gray and tired eyes that had seen too many sleepless nights. He had joined the Space Force because he believed in exploring the universe, in finding new worlds and new life. He had never imagined that new life would find them first. "Captain," said Park, the young communications officer. His voice was shaking. "I'm detecting ships at the edge of the solar system, multiple contacts." "How many?" Daniel asked, though something in his gut already knew the answer would be bad. His face went white, his hands trembled over his controls. "Sir, I'm reading 12,000 vessels." The bridge went completely silent. 12,000 ships. Humanity's entire fleet numbered 47. 47 ships against 12,000. Daniel did the math in his head and felt his heart turn to ice. Commander Lisa Morgan stood beside him. She was his first officer, a woman in her late 30s with short brown hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. The crew called her the Glacier because nothing seemed to shake her, but even she looked pale now. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," said. "The message is being translated into every human language." "Put it on speakers," Daniel ordered. A harsh alien voice filled the bridge. "Species of Earth, the Galactic Assembly has voted. Your planet now belongs to us. Your people will be relocated. Your resources will be taken. You have one choice, surrender or die." The message repeated, "Surrender or die, surrender or die." Daniel turned off the speakers. He looked at his crew, at these ordinary men and women who had never asked to be heroes. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes, but they were also waiting for him to tell them what to do. "Get me fleet command," he said quietly, "and wake up every ship we have." In Washington, D.C., President sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House. She was 55 years old, the first female president, elected on promises of peace and prosperity. Now she faced something no president had ever faced before. The room was filled with generals and advisors, all of them looking at screens showing the approaching alien fleet. General Frank Torres, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, stood at the main display. "Ma'am," he said grimly, "the alien fleet will reach Earth orbit in approximately 72 hours. We have confirmed 12,000 warships. Our intelligence suggests each one is armed with weapons we cannot match and protected by shields we cannot break." "What are our options?" asked. The general shook his head slowly. "Ma'am, we have no options, not good ones anyway. Our nuclear weapons won't get through their shields. Our ships can't outrun them. We could throw everything we have at them, every bomb, every missile, every bullet, and it wouldn't be enough. So we surrender." His voice was sharp. "We just give up. Let them take our planet, our people, our future." "I didn't say that, ma'am." Frank met her eyes. "I said we have no good options, but Americans have never needed good options. We just need options." Nodded slowly. "Then we fight. We fight until we can't fight anymore. And maybe, just maybe, we hurt them enough that they think twice before doing this to anyone else." She stood up, her face set with determination. "Get me the leaders of every nation. It's time the world stopped fighting each other and started fighting together." On the Endeavor, Daniel Carter called his crew to the main cargo bay. 400 men and women stood in neat rows, their faces a mix of fear and determination. Daniel looked at them and felt something burning in his chest, something fierce and proud. "I'm not going to lie to you," he began. "You've all seen the numbers, 12,000 ships against 47. By any reasonable measure, we've already lost. The aliens think we're primitive. They think we'll surrender the moment we see their fleet. They think we're weak." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. "They've never met humans before." A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. "We are the species that climbed out of the mud and taught ourselves to walk upright. We survived ice ages that covered half our planet. We survived plagues that killed millions. We survived 2 world wars, famines, disasters, and our own stupidity. Every time the universe knocked us down, we got back up. Every time someone said it was impossible, we did it anyway." His voice grew stronger. "They think numbers matter. They think technology matters. They don't understand what matters most. Heart, will, the refusal to quit even when everything says you should. That's what makes us human. That's what they're about to learn." He looked across the cargo bay at the faces of his crew. "Today, we're not fighting to win. We're fighting to show them who we are. We're fighting so that when they tell stories about Earth, they'll remember that we didn't go quietly. We stood up. We fought back. And we made them bleed for every inch they took." Daniel raised his fist. "For Earth, for humanity, for everyone we love." 400 voices answered as one. "For Earth." The alien fleet drew closer with every passing hour. On Earth, families gathered together. People called loved ones they hadn't spoken to in years. Old enemies shook hands. Soldiers kissed their children goodbye. And in a small town in Kansas, Grace Miller watched the night sky with her. They didn't know what was coming. She had decided not to tell them. Instead, she told them stories about brave knights and clever heroes who faced impossible odds and never gave up. Because that's what humans did. They told stories of hope, even in the darkest times. The fleet would arrive in 3 days. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to say goodbye. 3 days to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral stood on the command deck of the Eternal Dominion and watched Earth grow larger on his display screens. It was a beautiful planet, he had to admit. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds swirling over its surface. It reminded him of his own, before his people had stripped it of resources and moved on to conquer others. "The human fleet has assembled in a defensive formation around their planet," L reported. 47 ships, sir. They're actually going to fight." His 4 eyes narrowed with something like respect. Brave, stupid but brave, I almost feel sorry for them. The human ships were tiny compared to his warships. The largest, the Endeavor, was barely a speck against the massive bulk of a battle cruiser. Their weapons were primitive, their shields non-existent, their tactics predictable. This would not be a battle, it would be an execution. "Open fire," ordered. "Disable their vessels. I want prisoners for the work camps. Healthy workers are more valuable than corpses." The first wave of plasma fire lit up the darkness of space. Beams of superheated energy, hot enough to melt through any metal, streaked toward the human fleet. 3 ships died instantly, their hulls vaporizing before their crews could even scream. But the rest scattered. They ran, watched with amusement as the human ships turned and fled toward the asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets. Their engines burned bright as they pushed their primitive vessels to maximum speed. "They're retreating," El said, "toward the asteroid field." "Let them run. They're only delaying the inevitable," settled back in his command chair. "Pursue them, destroy them among the rocks. It will be good target practice for our gunners." The galactic fleet followed the fleeing humans into the asteroid belt. 12,000 warships spread out among the tumbling rocks, sensors tracking the human vessels as they wove between the massive chunks of stone and metal. That was when everything went wrong. The first explosion came without warning. An asteroid near the front of the fleet suddenly accelerated, moving impossibly fast, and slammed into a cruiser. The ship's shields flared bright for a moment, then collapsed. The rock punched through the hull like a fist through paper, and the cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. Then another asteroid moved, and another, and another. "What's happening?" shouted, gripping his command chair as his ship shook from a nearby explosion. El's hands flew over his controls, his voice filled with disbelief. "The asteroids are armed. The humans have installed kinetic accelerators throughout the belt. They're launching rocks at us at significant fractions of light speed." "That's impossible. Shield should stop." "Nothing can stop a projectile moving that fast, sir. It's basic physics. Mass times velocity. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not chunks of iron moving at relativistic speeds." All around the Eternal Dominion, ships were dying. 200 warships destroyed in the first 3 minutes, then 300, then 500. The asteroid belt had become a killing field, and the galactic fleet was trapped in the middle of it. On the bridge of the Endeavor, Daniel Carter watched the explosions bloom across his tactical display. His crew was cheering, but he kept his face calm. This was only the beginning. "Phase 2, he ordered. "Release the drones." For the past 6 months, ever since humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel, they had been preparing for this moment. They knew they couldn't compete with alien technology in a fair fight, so they decided not to fight fair. A young physicist named Sophie Reed from MIT had made the breakthrough. She had analyzed the signals from alien faster-than-light communications and discovered something crucial: the frequency of their shield harmonics. With that information, humanity had built millions of tiny drones, each one no larger than a human fist. They carried a simple payload, a shaped charge designed to pass through alien shields like they weren't even there. The drones launched from hidden bases on asteroids throughout the belt, millions of them, swarming through space like angry insects. They were too small for alien sensors to track, too numerous to shoot down, too simple to hack or disable. They found the galactic warships and attached themselves to their hulls. And then, all at once, they detonated. Watched in horror as ship after ship exploded. His shields did nothing. His weapons couldn't target the tiny drones. His crews couldn't fight an enemy they couldn't see. "Fall back," he screamed. "All ships fall back." The retreat was chaos. Ships crashed into each other trying to escape the asteroid belt. Others were destroyed by kinetic strikes as they tried to flee. The humans pursued them, their tiny fleet darting between the rocks, picking off damaged vessels with their primitive but effective missiles. By the time the galactic fleet cleared the asteroid belt, 6,000 ships were gone, half of the most powerful military force in the known universe, destroyed by a species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel 6 months ago. El looked at his admiral with new eyes. "Sir, how did they know our shield frequencies? How did they know we would pursue them into the belt?" Had no answer. He stared at the distant blue planet that had just humiliated his fleet, and for the first time in his 400 years of life, he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. On Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. People poured into the streets, crying and hugging each other. They had been told they would die. They had been told there was no hope, and now, against all odds, they were still alive. President addressed the world from the White House lawn. "They came to subjugate us. They thought we would be easy prey. They thought we would surrender at the sight of their fleet." She smiled, and there was steel in her eyes. "They were wrong. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. We have shown them that humanity will never surrender. We have shown them that we will fight for our home, our families, our future. And we have shown them something else." She looked up at the stars. "We have shown them that we are not afraid." Admiral paced the command deck of the Eternal Dominion like a caged animal. His 4 eyes burned with rage and shame. He had arrived at Earth with 12,000 ships. Now he had less than 6,000. Half his fleet, the pride of the Galactic Assembly, destroyed by primitives, by creatures who still used fossil fuels and fought over patches of dirt on their little blue planet. The Assembly would never forgive this failure. His career was over. His legacy was ruined. Unless he could still win. Unless he could still take Earth and present it as a trophy to prove that humanity was just a temporary setback. "Regroup the fleet near the 5th planet," he ordered. "We need to reassess our strategy." El looked up from his tactical display. "Sir, our supply ships are reporting low ammunition levels. The battle in the asteroid belt consumed more resources than expected. We need to resupply before we can launch another assault." "Then contact the supply convoy. Tell them to accelerate their arrival." "Yes, sir." The supply convoy, 27 ships carrying fuel, ammunition, food, and replacement parts. They were 50 light-years away, traveling through safe, secure space that no enemy could possibly reach. The backbone of the invasion force. Without them, the fleet could not continue. What didn't know was that humanity had been watching, listening, learning. Commander Lisa Morgan sat in the captain's chair of the Endeavour. Daniel Carter was in the medical bay, getting treatment for minor injuries from the battle. He had insisted on staying on the bridge until the last alien ship retreated, and he had collapsed only when he knew Earth was safe. For now. "Status report," Lisa said calmly. Park turned from his communication station. "We've intercepted alien transmissions, Commander. They're calling for resupply. Their convoy is 50 light-years away." Lisa allowed herself a small smile. It was the first time her crew had ever seen her smile. Time to go hunting. Sophie Reed had done more than just crack the alien shield frequencies. She had also figured out how to improve their faster-than-light drives. The aliens used something called a dimensional fold, which bent space to allow instant travel between 2 points. Human scientists had been studying captured alien wreckage for months, and Sophie had found a way to make the process more efficient. Human ships could now jump farther and faster than anything in the galactic fleet. 12 human ships, including the Endeavour, gathered in formation behind Earth's moon. Their crews were tired, injured, running on coffee and adrenaline, but they were also angry. They had seen friends die in the asteroid belt. They had watched alien weapons vaporize human ships, and they wanted revenge. "All ships, this is Commander Morgan," Lisa broadcast to the small fleet. "Our mission is simple. We're going to jump behind enemy lines and destroy their supply convoy. Without supplies, the alien fleet can't continue their invasion. they'll be forced to retreat. She paused. This is a one-way mission. The aliens will know we're coming the moment we arrive. We may not make it home. If anyone wants to stay behind, I won't blame you. Not a single ship dropped out of formation. Very well, jump in 60 seconds. The 12 ships activated their drives and vanished in flashes of light. They reappeared 50 light-years away, in the middle of the alien supply convoy. The convoy had minimal escorts. Why would they need protection? They were far from any battlefield, far from any enemy. No primitive species could possibly reach them. The humans opened fire immediately. All batteries fire at will, Lisa ordered. Her voice was calm, almost bored. Inside, her heart was pounding. Human missiles and kinetic rounds tore into the unprepared alien ships. Supply vessels, never designed for combat, exploded one after another. Fuel tankers went up in massive fireballs that lit up the darkness of space. Ammunition carriers detonated, their contents cooking off in spectacular chain reactions. The few escort ships tried to fight back, but they were outnumbered, and the humans had learned from the asteroid belt battle. They knew where to aim, where the shields were weakest, how to maximize damage with minimum firepower. 27 supply ships died in less than an hour. A year's worth of fuel and ammunition, gone in flames. Lisa Morgan looked at the destruction and felt grim satisfaction. Mission accomplished. All ships jump home. The human fleet vanished, leaving nothing behind but wreckage and silence. When word reached Admiral, he broke his command console with his bare hands. His officers backed away in fear as he raged through the bridge, destroying everything he could reach. How? He screamed. How did they know where the convoy was? How did they travel 50 light-years without us detecting them? How are they doing this? No one had answers. Orders came from the Galactic Assembly within hours. Retreat, regroup, return to assembly space. This invasion was over. For the first time in 300 years of conquest, the combined galactic fleet was pulling back from a target, running from a species that had only known about aliens for a few months. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The mighty defeated by primitives, the unstoppable fleet cut in half by a single planet. Species that had lived in fear of the assembly for centuries suddenly began to whisper, if the humans could fight back, maybe they could too. On Earth, presidents stood before the United Nations General Assembly. Every nation was represented, united for the first time in human history. Today we have won a battle, she said, but the war is not over. The aliens will return. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but they will come back. And when they do, we must be ready. She looked around the room at the faces of world leaders, former enemies now standing together. We need to build. We need to prepare. We need to become stronger than we have ever been. Not just for ourselves, but for every species out there that has been conquered, enslaved, and oppressed by the Galactic Assembly. We will show the galaxy that there is another way, that the strong do not have to crush the weak, that freedom is worth fighting for. She raised her fist. We are humanity. We climb out of the mud. We reach for the stars, and we never ever give up. The assembly erupted in cheers. In Kansas, Grace Miller watched the celebrations on television. Her were dancing around the living room, waving little flags. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they knew it was something good. Grace smiled and said a quiet prayer of thanks. Her species had survived another day, and somewhere deep in her heart, she knew that this was only the beginning. The humans were done being afraid. Now it was the galaxy's turn. 1 year had passed since the invasion. 1 year since humanity looked up at the sky and saw 12,000 warships coming to destroy them. 1 year since 47 ships held the line against impossible odds. 1 year since everything changed. The Galactic Assembly convened on Prime, as they had done for centuries. The great crystal hall floated in space, its towers reaching toward the stars. Representatives from 37 civilizations gathered to discuss the usual matters of trade, territory, and tribute. But this time, something was different. Outside the dome, human warships filled the sky. Not 47 ships, not 100, not even 500. Humanity had built a fleet of over 2,000 vessels in 12 months. Each ship was bigger, faster, and more powerful than anything they had possessed before. They had taken captured alien technology and improved it. They had learned shield harmonics and made them stronger. They had mastered plasma weapons and made them deadlier. They had studied faster-than-light travel and made it faster. And they had done something else, something that terrified every species in the galaxy. They had started a revolution. There were a species of small, green-skinned beings who had been enslaved by for 800 years. They worked in mines and factories, treated worse than animals, beaten if they complained and killed if they resisted. Humanity had made contact with them 6 months ago. They had shared technology, weapons, and something even more dangerous, hope. They had risen against their masters, and they were not alone. Though the bird-like species who had been forced to join the assembly under threat of destruction had declared independence, though the crystal beings who had paid tribute for generations had stopped paying, a dozen other species had joined the rebellion, armed with human weapons and guided by human advisors. The old order was crumbling. Ambassador Daniel Carter walked into the assembly hall. He was no longer a captain. Humanity had promoted him after the war. He wore a simple black uniform with the flag of Earth on his shoulder. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. Behind him walked representatives from 17 species. And others, all of them former subjects of the assembly, all of them now free. The alien delegates watched in silence as the humans and their allies took their places at the center of the hall. Ambassador Al, the same who had called for humanity's extinction 1 year ago, stood up from his seat. His scales had gone pale with fear. His 4 eyes darted nervously around the hall. "This is outrageous," he declared, trying to sound confident. "Humans have no right to be here. They are not members of the assembly. They are criminals who have attacked our fleet and stolen our subjects. They should be arrested and—" "Sit down, Al," Daniel said quietly. Something in his voice made the ambassador stop talking. He sat down. Daniel looked around the hall at the representatives of 37 civilizations. These were the beings who had voted to destroy his planet, who had sent 12,000 ships to enslave his people, who had never even considered that humanity might fight back. 1 year ago, Daniel began, you voted to subjugate Earth. 37 civilizations and not one voice spoke for humanity. Not one hand was raised in our defense. You thought we were weak. You thought we were primitive. You thought we would be easy prey. He paused, letting the silence stretch. You were wrong. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We did not come here for revenge, Daniel continued. We came here to tell you that the old way is over. The Galactic Assembly, as you knew it, no longer exists. The combined fleet has been destroyed. The empire of conquest and slavery that you built over centuries has fallen. Al stood up again, his voice shaking. You cannot do this. We have treaties. We have laws. You had laws that allowed you to vote entire species into extinction, Daniel interrupted. You had treaties that legalized slavery. Your system was built on suffering, and we have torn it down. He stepped forward, his eyes sweeping across the terrified delegates. From this moment forward, every species is free to govern themselves, free to make their own choices, free to live without fear of invasion or subjugation. The Galactic Assembly will be reformed. It will become a place of cooperation, not conquest, a forum for trade and diplomacy, not threats and demands. And if we refuse? A delegate asked, his voice clicking with nervousness. Daniel smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You all voted to subjugate Earth, every single one of you, and now every single one of you will live with the consequences." He gestured at the human warships visible through the dome. "We are not here to conquer. We are not like you. We are here to ensure that what you tried to do to us never happens to anyone else. But make no mistake." His voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. "If any species anywhere in this galaxy ever threatens another with extinction, ever tries to enslave another people, ever votes to destroy an innocent world, they will answer to humanity. We climbed out of the mud. We survived everything the universe threw at us. We beat your fleet when you outnumbered us 250 to 1, and we will do it again if we have to." He turned and walked toward the exit, his allies following behind him. "You wanted to know what humans are," he said over his shoulder. "Now you know. We're the species you should have left alone. We're the species that never gives up. And we're the species that will protect this galaxy from anyone who thinks might makes right." The doors closed behind him. The assembly hall was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the delegation stood up. They walked to the center of the hall and raised their feathered hands in a gesture of approval. The followed. Then the smaller species, the ones who had lived in fear for so long. One by one, they stood and showed their support for the new order. Al watched his empire crumble, with nothing he could do to stop it. 5 years later, Grace Miller still sat on her porch in Kansas, watching the sunset. But the sky was different now. Ships moved among the stars, trade vessels from 100 worlds. A family had moved in down the road. Tourists visited the Grand Canyon and took pictures with their wings spread wide. A young child played in the field beside Grace's house. His name was, and his parents had fled the collapse of the Dominion. They had come to Earth seeking asylum, and humanity had taken them in. Ran up to Grace's porch, his scales dusty from playing. "Mrs. Miller," he asked, "why did your people help us after what we did?" Grace smiled, her weathered face crinkling with warmth. "Because that's who we are, sweetheart. We fight hard when we have to, but we would rather help than hurt. We would rather build than destroy." She looked up at the stars, at the ships moving between worlds, at the future humanity had built from impossible odds. They thought we would be easy to conquer. They never understood that the same stubbornness that makes us fight to the last breath also makes us reach out our hands to former enemies. Thought about this for a moment, then he climbed onto the porch and sat beside her. Together, they watched the sunset paint the sky in gold and red. The galaxy had learned what it meant to share the universe with humanity. It was terrifying, and it was wonderful. The end.